Hi, Christine Williams back again to talk with you about your great triumph in completing your life story, My Life Story, as it's now titled. The autobiography of your life with all the main concerns and events compacted down to several thousand words on a page or screen, all of those words created by you to best describe your incredible lived experience. All the trials and tribulations, all the bliss and shared happiness. Congratulations on what you've created so far. Now all you need to do is place the cherry on the top of your autobiographical cake, a glorious gâteau composed of the memories you had locked away in the treasure chest of your mind. The memories that came flooding back, as well as those shy episodes that wanted to remain out of view and which you had to entice to the surface to share with those who will read your story. The cherry on top? What cherry is that? It's the cherry of your epilogue, your reflection upon your reflections contained in this account of your life. This review that we'll begin now is the culmination of the process of constructing your memoir. It's where the real value of your story lies, the opportunity at the end of a written work to comment on the work itself. It's your way of commenting on the meaning of the work to you, a look back at the process of remembering and writing, deciding what was meaningful in your life to keep in the story and what was not so important, even though it might have seemed important at the time. What you have here in your memoir, page after page, are those parts of your life as lived that remained meaningful and are integral to the final culling, the final cut. An epilogue doesn't need to be long. It certainly doesn't need to be a box full of repetitions of what you've written earlier. What it can be is a realization for yourself and your readers, a summary which contains revelations for us all. It's your final opportunity to consider the meaning of your life as lived, to view it in relation to your early dreams and ambitions, to take a realistic view of what you achieved, even though your life no doubt did not unfold according to the early script you imagined, to recognize that your life fitted well your pattern of thinking and the values you held dear. Those values may not have been conventional, they may not have been the values that produce great fame or material wealth, but they must have contained riches even so, riches in tune with what you believe in and your relationships with others. Finally, the epilogue is your opportunity to realize an understanding of the meaning of your life, to yourself and others. To have loved and been loved by at least one other may have been enough in itself. So now, let's look at the center of our being. This is an expression that has been used to describe the sense of oneness that pervades a meditative practice, in a way an attempt to explain the inexplicable. A Swedish diplomat, Dag Hammarskjöld, used the term in this way, and I quote, "In the point of rest at the center of our being, we encounter a world where all things are at rest in the same way." The American Trappist monk, Thomas Merton, also had an understanding of the term in relation to all religious movements when he said, "At the center of our being is a point of nothingness which is untouched by sin and by illusion, a point of pure truth." And if you want the fuller quotes, you can look in the notes for this webinar. The story of your life that you've been writing over these 2 months has so very often been about the expression of your life through action and spoken word, which you've written about through your description of your actions and your involvement in dialogues. But you've very often written your thoughts, not only what you thought of your own and others' actions and speech, but also in the very choice of what you decided and would write about and what you chose to leave out of your story or had by this time forgotten as inconsequential. Do you think that through this process you've come closer to an understanding of the center of your life or the center of your being? What is to be found in stillness, the mental and emotional rest you find after contemplation, after the reflection you've engaged in intensely over the past 2 months? Can you at least write about the sense of satisfaction you may now feel, the deeper understanding you have about what your life has been about? Do you recognize the gifts of love and understanding you've received along the way, or those you've given, often without them being reciprocated? Can you see that some people have loved you exquisitely, and have you given up being vexed that others have not? Are you finally at peace with yourself so that you can honestly look at your life with gratitude, knowing, without taking on the leaden burden of feeling full responsibility, knowing that there are millions of people on this earth struggling to reach a place that is a mere fraction of the emotional and physical well-being you've experienced over the course of your life? So, the first draft of your story is almost complete. once you've written here in your epilogue some of the highlights of the process of not only your life, but the writing of it, you'll be able to feel justly proud of the result you've achieved. This journey of exploration of the self has been a writing task you may have hardly dared to think at the outset that you'd succeed in. But there it is. First a prologue, where you set out what your plan and purpose was in writing my life story, followed by 6 chapters that encapsulate your life. Now, what still needs to be said? Perhaps not a lot. Perhaps you feel that most of what you needed to convey to your readers has been dealt with. And yet, there might linger in your mind the idea that there are some aspects of your life, or your life as you have now written it, that deserve a little more examination. And perhaps that examination is more about the interior of your life than the exterior actions. No, I don't mean the internal organs of your body, your liver, your lungs, your pancreas, although these must be affected as they're linked with all your actions in life. I guess the heart may be the main organ I'm talking about. Well, not so much the pumping chamber that carries blood and oxygen to every other part of your body, but more what is known in India as the heart chakra. This is said to be part of a network of energy channels around your body which might best be described as an outer nervous system. Hindus are not the only religious faithful who study the non-material elements to personality and non-physical, that is, spiritual understanding. One branch of Islam, at least, has an aesthetic focus, Sufism, and one great poet in that tradition, Rumi, is considered by many to be a Sufi saint. Here are some quotes from his poetry. Don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth. What you seek is seeking you. Stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Now, the Christian tradition also has its fair share of aesthetic saints, many of whom have visions, or had visions, which reinforced their faith, and many of whom had what is known as immaculate corpses after their death, which is when the body does not decay for up to a week at least, taken as a sign of their purity of thought and body. Now, I'm not expecting you to be saintly. I mean, who do any of us know who is a saint? But there may have been experiences you've had in life which you've felt to be true at some deep level, through instinct or intuition, whatever name you might want to give it, an experience which was beyond rational explanation, maybe even a strange coincidence that had a big impact on the course of your life. Let me offer you a couple of readings, which you can find at greater length in the notes to this webinar, as a prompt for you to write something from your own life in a few minutes. Now, here's a quote from Saint Teresa of Avila in Spain, who lived in the 16th century, wrote several books about her life, and is known as the patron saint of writers. Quote, "It is foolish to think that we will enter heaven without entering into ourselves," she wrote. In another passage of her writing, Teresa writes of her soul using the language of erotic passion. And here's the quote. "It pleased our Lord that I should see the following vision a number of times. I saw an angel near me, on the left side, in bodily form. He was not tall, but short, marvellously beautiful, with a face which shone as though he were one of the highest of the angels, who seemed to be all of fire. They must be those whom we call seraphim. I saw in his hands a long golden spear, and at the point of the iron there seemed to be a little fire. This I thought that he thrust several times into my heart, and that it penetrated to my entrails." How much heart did you bring to the task of writing your life story, of writing your autobiography? It may have been reasonably easy for you to plunge right in and to get those words on paper or screen. I hope it was. That's certainly what we at My Life Story Project were encouraging you to do. So if there have been some perplexing moments which you'd like to include in your life story, now's your opportunity. Some unusual experience, some strange coincidence, some intuition which proved right, against what might have seemed the more rational way to go. This writing exercise will last 10 minutes this time, and once you're done, resume by clicking play. Bravo! I hope that you were able to unravel the complexity and impact on your life of that unusual experience. Now, Let's take a look at what we've been doing over the last 8 weeks. Once you are on the road to recapture your memories, and along with those your emotions, in many ways you were reliving them before writing them down. In the heat of creation, in recreating those scenes and those conversations, you must at times have felt intense involvement. But when that was done, did you gain some distance from the heat of the moment? It may have occurred on more than one occasion that your small self was involved in a bigger revelation, a revelation that you were not in charge of everything that was going down, that your plans were often somewhat related but not necessarily on target for what was actually occurring in your life. Let's look at 3 points here. Maybe you fell in love, but the object of that love was not the person you spent the largest part of your life with. Perhaps that first person was more the one through whom you were able to open your heart, which was the most important aspect of the relationship, even though at the time biological urges may have seemed the most important aspect. Maybe you aimed to get a job in a particular field of work but ended up flourishing in another, or spent a long time out of that field before you finally ended up in a position alongside where you'd planned. Maybe when young you'd had the idea that you wanted several children, but it was not to be. Here in the epilogue is the place for you to discuss those revelations that came to you in the course of writing your life story. And I want you to begin this thoughtful process here and now in a 10-minute writing exercise, which you'll continue after this webinar and over the week ahead. Here are now some of the questions you might consider in the epilogue, which you can begin in a minute. What, if any, new view of your life did you stumble upon as you thought back, carried out research in talking to people who have known you well, viewed old photos or film, reflected again and then wrote? How did your opinion about this person or that person, including yourself, change during the writing of your story? Did you come to see the people in your life with more compassion? Can you now witness some events and occasions with more understanding of how all people in life are locked into their roles? Sense of duty, loyalty, or values you didn't understand at the time? What would you do again or not do again? Okay, you can pause the webinar and write now for 10 minutes a couple of stories based on these ideas. Hi again. I'd like you now to think a little more about what's been going on over the last 8 weeks. You can focus on your life itself and the quirky ways it's turned out, or similarly you can focus on the writing of the story and what the writing has given you during that process. It's a gift to yourself that I'm talking about. What came as a surprise to you about the craft of writing? What did you come to understand about what could be described as the characters of your life story? You remembered them as significant people in your life, perhaps, but then at some point they took on a role separate from the merely frozen figures from the past. Did they live again through your writing? Was your writing able to do them justice if they deserved it? And what if they didn't? Were you able to come to a place of forgiveness, or at least recognition of the limits of their understanding or generosity? Let's look again at some of the questions I've mentioned above to try another writing exercise. You can address these questions or any other related to what you've learned and how you wrote about that newfound wisdom in describing some details of events in your life. At what point did you recognize that you are not responsible for everyone else, that you can't live others' lives for them, and that pain is as intrinsic a part of living as pleasure and satisfaction? Knowing that you were not responsible for everything that went well and everything that went badly, do you feel a sense of emotional peace and calm? How well have you received love and understanding as well as given it to others when they needed it? What have you found to be at the centre of your being? Try to tackle a couple of these questions here and now for 10 minutes before you resume the webinar. Hello, Christine back again, and I hope that writing exercise went well. During this coming week, please write as little or as much as you think is necessary to include in your epilogue. And remember that you can come back to this webinar at any time you want to reflect some more on the insights you've gained from your writing. I hope that this My Life Story project has inspired you in the initial concept of creating a record of your life written as your very own take on life. Each of us has an original view of the world and special periods in our lives that we want to record for posterity, for our children and our children's children, as well as our true friends. I appreciate the effort you've put into this writing journey, which we have shared, and I hope this week you will reach a truly satisfying end to your My Life Story writing project. You have created your own unique story of your life in your very own voice. It's probably been a labour of love in some ways to reveal both the vagaries and successes of your life. A life lived to the best of your ability, considering the challenges you've met along the way. I admire your deep determination, and I hope that you will treasure the experience of writing this memoir to preserve a unique view of your life and times for readers of the future. If you'd like to take your project further, to have your story edited and transformed into an ebook, online and a hardback print edition, just get in touch with me by email and we'll be able to discuss how My Life Story Project can help. For now, you can take great satisfaction in the thought that you've achieved and gifted to yourself and your loved ones a deep and abiding reflection on the value of your life, the legacy of your life.